They never thought their home would become their tomb. In the frozen heart of Kazakhstan, 450 kilometers northwest of Astana, something impossible was happening. In a village called Kalachi, people were falling asleep and couldn't wake up. Not for hours, not for days, sometimes not for weeks. It was April 2010 when the first victim collapsed. Lyubov Belkova was working at the local market when an overwhelming drowsiness seized her like an invisible hand. Her words began to slur, her vision doubled. Then she fell, as if her consciousness had been severed by an unseen blade. When she finally opened her eyes, days later, she remembered nothing. Only darkness, and the terrifying blank space where her life had been. The villagers thought it was an isolated incident. They were wrong. By spring 2013, the nightmare had become an epidemic. 8 people fell asleep over a single weekend. Then 5 women collapsed simultaneously, their bodies crumpling to the ground like puppets with cut strings. A child named Misha Plukin saw hallucinations before his eyes rolled back. Even Marquise the cat succumbed, falling into a deep, snoring slumber that mimicked human sleep. Whatever haunted Kalachi didn't discriminate between species, age, or health. It took whom it wanted, when it wanted. The symptoms were horrifying in their unpredictability. Victims would be mid-conversation, mid-step, mid-meal and then gone, swaying, stumbling, speaking in thick, drunken syllables. Their eyes would glaze over, and consciousness would abandon them. Those who witnessed these collapses described a chilling pattern. The afflicted didn't simply fall asleep. They were taken. When they finally emerged from their stupors, the victims were shells of themselves. They woke, disoriented, unable to recall days or weeks of their lives. Many suffered blinding headaches, nausea, and vertigo. Some experienced memory loss so severe they couldn't remember falling ill at all. It was as if chunks of their existence had been surgically removed from their minds. Fear gripped the village like winter frost. In a settlement of just 640 souls, over 140 cases were documented. That meant nearly a quarter of the entire population had been struck. Some people fell victim multiple times. 3 attacks, 4 attacks, their lives reduced to a terrifying cycle of consciousness and oblivion. Parents watched their children collapse at school. Husbands found their wives unconscious in their kitchens. No pattern emerged. No warning came. The Kazakh government mobilized. Scientists descended upon the village. Conducting over 20,000 laboratory tests, they analyzed the air, the soil, the water, the food. They tested building materials and animals. They drew blood from residents and searched for viruses, bacteria, toxins, anything that could explain the inexplicable. Theories multiplied like shadows. Counterfeit vodka. Tests proved negative. Some victims hadn't touched alcohol at all. Mass hysteria. The physical symptoms were too real, too consistent. Radiation from the abandoned Soviet uranium mines near Krasnogorsk, the ghost town that once housed 6,500 miners. Radiation levels were measured in over 7,000 homes. The readings came back normal. Every lead turned to dust. Every hypothesis crumbled. The world began calling Kalachi Sleepy Hollow. International media descended, fascinated by this impossible plague. Residents began abandoning their homes, fleeing from an enemy they couldn't see or understand. The government announced a mass evacuation in January 2015. All 680 residents would be relocated, but many refused to leave. Viktor Kazachenko, who had lived in Kalachi for over 40 years, defiantly told reporters, "I'm not going anywhere. Why should I go?" He didn't understand that staying might cost him everything. The answer hidden underground. Then, In summer 2015, after years of terror, scientists finally found it. Not radiation, not vodka, not hysteria. Carbon monoxide, deep beneath Kalachi, the abandoned Soviet uranium mines shut down in the 1990s after the Soviet Union collapse had become death traps of a different kind. Without proper ventilation, without maintenance, the flooded mine shafts were producing dangerous concentrations of carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons through incomplete combustion processes. These invisible gases were seeping up through the earth, periodically releasing into the village's atmosphere during specific weather conditions. But it wasn't just the carbon monoxide alone. It wasn't just the hydrocarbons alone. It wasn't even just the reduced oxygen levels alone. It was all three together, a deadly trinity that created what scientists called a classic synergy effect, each component separately measured within normal levels. Together, they became a silent assassin. Carbon monoxide binds to blood 200 times more effectively than oxygen. When these gases rose from the mines and filled Kalachi's air, they starved residents' brains of oxygen. Asphyxiation set in. The brain, desperate to preserve itself, shut down non-essential functions. Victims collapsed into forced hibernation while their bodies struggled to survive. The seasonal pattern finally made sense. The winter cases, the spring surges, the seemingly random attacks, it all depended on underground pressure, flooding levels, and atmospheric conditions that pushed the deadly cocktail to the surface. Deputy Prime Minister Berdybek Saparbov announced the findings to the world. Sergei Lukashenko from Kazakhstan's National Nuclear Center confirmed what they'd discovered. The mines had nothing to do with uranium, and everything to do with invisible poison seeping through the soil. By the time the truth emerged, 150 people had already fled. Another 240 were on the relocation list. The village was dying, person by person, family by family. The last reported case came in April 2015, but scientists warned the symptoms would return with winter's arrival. Kalachi had become uninhabitable. The Soviet legacy, those abandoned mines, those forgotten industrial scars, had transformed a village into a gas chamber with no walls. The sleeping sickness of Kalachi teaches us a devastating truth. Our past never truly sleeps. The industrial remnants we abandon, the environmental wounds we leave untended, the infrastructure we forget, they don't simply disappear. They fester, they evolve. They find new ways to harm us. The Soviets built those mines for uranium. They closed them without thought for tomorrow. Decades later, their negligence manifested as a plague that stole consciousness itself from an entire village. The earth remembered what humans forgot. Modern nations are littered with abandoned industrial sites, forgotten mines, and decaying infrastructure. Each one is a Kalachi waiting to happen. Each one is a time bomb ticking beneath someone's home. We cannot abandon what we build. If you live near former industrial sites, demand environmental monitoring. If your government has closed mines, chemical plants, or factories in your region, insist on proper remediation and ongoing safety assessments. Don't trust that closed means safe. Support legislation requiring perpetual maintenance and monitoring of abandoned industrial infrastructure. The cost of prevention is always lower than the cost of human suffering. Share this story. Make people aware that invisible dangers exist in places we've forgotten to look. The residents of Kalachi fell asleep because the world had forgotten about Soviet mines that closed 30 years ago. What else have we forgotten? What's sleeping beneath your feet right now, waiting to wake? The villagers of Kalachi learned too late that the most dangerous threats aren't the ones we can see. They're the ones we've buried and forgotten, still breathing poison into the air while we sleep, unaware that our home has become our tomb. Don't let your village become the next Kalachi. Remember the past. Monitor the present. Protect the future. Because once everyone falls asleep, who will be left to wake them? If you want more stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's support amazing and bizarre stories around the world.